Hello, I'm recording recording.
You've also got some memories as well to share.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I have a poem about the upcoming election,
Okay.
and I thought I'd read that out.
Well, before that, I do have my huge amount of star. I've got a poem first, but you've also got some memories.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I have a poem about the upcoming election,
Oh, okay.
and I thought I'd read that out.
Well, before that, I do have my huge amount of star. Got a poem first, but you've also.
Great band in Australia called All Our Exes Live in Texas. Do you know them?
I have heard of them, yes.
Yeah. I think all the exes and all the crazy people should just go and live in Texas.
Yeah,
And
all my eczema lives in Texma.
AJ Lamarck is here, as is Kevin Juahan. They're our comedians in session. This is You Won't Believe This, the unbelievable.
Obviously, is slightly different than the UK, in which some of the ideologies, the political ideologies, are more baked into the newsroom side. The lines are less clear.
And part of the reason, obviously, why we're looking at this, and I wouldn't say it's only us on the media show who are interested, is this sense that what's happening is part of a broader trend of news organisations who are adjusting to a new president and a new world.
Got a poem first, but you've also got some memories as well to share.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I have a poem about the upcoming election,
Oh, okay.
and I thought I'd read that out.
Well, before that, I do have my huge amount of star.
Keeps cutting out, bruh.
Got a poem first, but you've also got some memories as
Keeps
well to
cutting
share.
out.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I have a poem about the upcoming election,
Oh, okay.
and I thought I'd read that out.
Well, before that, I do have my huge amount of star. You've also got some memories as well to share.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I have a poem about the upcoming election,
Okay.
and I thought I'd read that out.
Well, before that, I do have my huge amount of star. I've got a poem first, but you've also got some memories.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I have a poem about the upcoming election,
Oh, okay.
and I thought I'd read that out.
ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music, and more.
An aged care worker
He was competent in his job. He was friendly.
in one of the finest nursing homes around
There was always someone around which made her feel safe.
is suspected of the worst possible crime.
A former nurse has been charged with murdering two elderly people at a Newcastle nursing home.
His arrest came as a shock.
Gary Davis was left stunned and distressed.
And 10 years on, he's speaking out from behind bars.
My name's Gary Stephen Davis. I maintain my innocence.
But is he lying?
You've predicted the deaths of two of the people who were injected. So how do you explain that?
Award-winning investigative reporter Anne Connolly is on the trail, unearthing fresh evidence.
Is it possible that he had been doing it and hadn't been caught before?
Oh yeah, I can post it. Oh yeah, you can post it and talk to it. And right, I haven't got much time because someone's ringing me in 30 minutes. Anyway, get on with it. I think criminal whatever. If you are a bad person, I am not. I am very soft. I am a big guy or something. I don't know. But I am soft. When I went to the pub, I got my tooth knocked out, and the guy screamed, "You're nothing. You're a piece of shit. You're fucking blah, 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 blah." You know what I mean? And they're really killing ya. So I don't understand. I'm not a good fighter. I'm into fighting. Excuse me. Criminals are criminals. 100 others wouldn't say 100 criminals can't lick the cunt, motherfucker. Fucker. Whatever. I'm thinking. Oh, I went off. Sorry. I apologize. I'm not a bad guy. I am not a criminal. I am just saying this is a criminal matters, that is what come down to it, okay? I've got to listen to it. And I love you. I'm intermixhector. Love you. I will protect you if you're next to me. You'll be a barrier, not talk too much, listen and reply. Have good manners, interesting, love it, have fun, yeah, go Japan, going to Chile, Viva Chile, vamos. Yeah, I love you. Intermixhector YouTube channel, subscribe.
The Invisible Killer, a new series by Background Briefing. Hear it now on the ABC Listen app.
On Russia's doorstep. Today, Russia expert Matthew Sussex from the Centre for European Studies at the ANU.
Ukraine and started it is something that the Trump would surrender territory. There were even suggestions from Trump that Zelensky was a dictator, not a democratically elected leader. And Russia has not been asked to give up anything at all. It's Ukraine that's been asked to surrender territory. There were even suggestions from Trump that Zelensky was a dictator, not a democratically elected leader. Russia has not been asked to give up anything at all. It's Ukraine that's been asked to surrender, to go away for 2 years and rearm, and then come back and try it again, basically with impunity.
And it's not at all clear, is it, Matt, what Vladimir Putin would be willing to give up in some sort of peace deal, what he would give to the deal.
Yeah, that's right. So far, with the Trump-led negotiations or the Trump team negotiations, Russia has not been asked to give up anything at all. It's Ukraine that's been asked to surrender territory. There were even suggestions from Trump that Zelensky was a dictator, not a democratically elected leader. And the idea Russia has Ukraine is attacked again, because that would just simply be a green light to Vladimir Putin to go away for 2 years and rearm, and then come back and try it again, basically with impunity.
And it's not at all clear, is it, Matt, what Vladimir Putin would be willing to give up in some sort of peace deal, what he would give to the deal.
Yeah, that's right. So far, with the Trump-led negotiations or the Trump team negotiations, Russia has not been asked to give up anything at all. It's Ukraine that's been asked to surrender territory. There were even suggestions from Trump that Zelensky was a dictator, not a democratically elected leader. And the idea that Russia actually invaded Ukraine and started it is something that the Trump administration has really, really struggled to articulate. There was a vote in the United Nations in which the United States voted no to a UN General Assembly resolution that said Russia was to blame for the war, and in doing so it found itself with new friends: North Korea, Belarus, Iran.
Well, in an interview released by the Kremlin, President Vladimir Putin, he didn't seem to be suggesting that a deal was as close as perhaps Donald Trump thinks it is.
We certainly touched on issues related to the Ukrainian crisis. However, it was not discussed in essence. We only agreed that we would approach it.
That's right. And Trump wants a deal quickly because he promised one quickly. He said he could end the conflict in 1 day. Then that became 100 days. But this is effectively Putin seeing how much he can get, turning up the pressure on the Trump administration, because every day that goes past without a deal is one that reflects badly on the US president. And I think Putin, in saying, well, we want a stable peace resolution, is essentially saying we want more territory and we want less influence by the United States and by Europe.
Okay, well, Matt, let's turn to what would happen after a peace deal is reached, if it is reached. After this meeting with Macron, Donald Trump was asked about whether Vladimir Putin would accept European peacekeepers in Ukraine. And he says he will.
Vladimir Putin to accept the European troops as peacekeeper, would you think? Yeah, he will accept that. If we do this deal, he's not looking for more war. He doesn't mind, but I've specifically asked him that question. He has no problem with it.
But do you think Putin would really be happy with that?
Well, Putin might agree to it as basically a negotiating tactic, to say initially that no, I won't go for that, and then ultimately say yes, that's okay, because peacekeepers come in a variety of different flavors, frankly. Sometimes we hear the term peacekeeping and we think, oh yes, they're there to stop, physically stop combatants from fighting one another. But that's actually really rarely the case. Peacekeepers, sometimes have rules of engagement that are so tight that they're just monitors. They're off to the side. And, there are huge questions about what kind of international peacekeeping force there would be there. Would they be able to fight back if they were shot at? Would they be able to fight on the side of the Ukrainians if the Russians decided to have another go? And also, if they weren't big enough, if they weren't there in enough numbers, then they'd actually be a drag on the Ukrainians, because they would have to provide this peacekeeping force with security and protect it.
Yeah, and where are they placed? Emmanuel Macron says, they wouldn't be sent any peacekeepers to the front line. Where do they go?
Well, I mean, the suggestion has been for something called a reassurance force, which doesn't sound all that potent, actually. But, a force made up of various European nations, not including American troops, because Trump has said that there would be no US troops on the ground. And this makes, of course, the Europeans worried that, well, what happens if, those peacekeeping forces, even though they're, way back from the line of contact, if they're attacked, does that bring NATO into it? Because an attack against one is supposed to be an attack against all. And the Trump administration has suggested, no, that's not the case, which means that realistically, European troops in Ukraine will have to kind of fend for themselves and rely on their own national governments, when the EU itself doesn't actually have an army. Everything goes through NATO.
Gosh, okay, very complicated. Matt, amidst all of this talk of a peace deal, of course, we need to touch on this rather intriguing discussion around minerals, of all things. In the interview we mentioned earlier with Vladimir Putin, he said the US and Russia, they can work together to exploit Russia's mineral wealth. What on earth is he on about?
Well, basically, Putin is proposing a new economic compact with the United States. The Russians have a large amount of territory and they have access to critical minerals. And this is something that Trump wants very badly, whether he can get it from Ukraine or whether he can get it from Russia. And from Putin's perspective, he wants to do a deal because his economy is, frankly, on the verge of tanking by the end of this year. We talk here in Australia about interest rates being 4.1%. In Russia, they're 21%.
Wow.
Inflation is running at 10%. So that is something that would really be weighing on Putin's mind, and doing a big deal with the Americans would be a massive boost to the Russian economy.
Yeah, and Trump, of course, as you mentioned, he also wants this deal with Ukraine. Well, that's all about money and repayment.
Yes, Trump has plucked this $500 billion figure, seems to be from the air, as sort of reparations for the assistance that it's given Ukraine, which is around about $115, $120 billion. Now he wants this back in the form of Ukrainian mineral resources. And it's just basically, I guess, minerals extortion, that you give us half of your minerals and we don't give you anything in return.
Well, Matt, 3 years into the war, can Europe, and for that matter, nations like Australia, trust Donald Trump and the US to help deter their enemies, or should alliances with the United States now be taken with a grain of salt?
Well, look, I probably would have said something different 3 weeks ago, but I think it's becoming increasing.
I just like to say, why doesn't NATO or UN or whatever you call it, not in the front line in the border? Why is that? Ukraine allowed to throw a bomb straight into the capital city of Russia, or that bad or something? If we visit Ukraine because we love Ukraine, we think Ukraine is not the fault, it's Russia who started it. That's what everybody says. What happened? Why are we not getting a peace deal?
The case that the US is regarded now as an unreliable security partner. The fact that you have both the incoming new German leader Merz, as well as Macron and other European leaders saying, well, we need to look to our own security and defence now, and basically look to self-help. So, yeah, there is, I think, a real tension that the United States is indifferent at the very best to security concerns in Europe, and hopefully not indifferent to security concerns in Asia either.
Well, if we can't trust the US, how can Europe and Ukraine trust that any peace deal that is done would be lasting, that Putin wouldn't just rearm and send in the troops again in a few years' time to try what he failed to do in the first instance, which is take all of Ukraine?
Yeah, well, this is the big question, isn't it? How far can you trust Vladimir Putin? And I was interested to see some of the comments from the Polish foreign minister just about 24 hours ago that said, if Europe decided to keep supplying Ukraine with weapons, then it's absolutely the case Ukraine could remain in the fight against Russia for the rest of the year and considerably beyond that as well. So there are options. I mean, it could be that Ukraine and Europe say, well, we don't want this dead cat deal that's been negotiated above our heads by Washington and Moscow, and we're not going to go for it, and Ukraine fights on. The problem with that, of course, is that Trump will say that Europe and Ukraine don't want peace at all. They're warmongers and might seek to draw down support for the NATO alliance and perhaps pull some US troops out.
So what's your feeling on that? Do you think 3 years into this war, a peace deal where Ukraine doesn't just surrender, can actually be done? And can it be done soon?
Look, it's possible we might get a ceasefire, but I don't think it'll hold. Absent really decent international guarantees for Ukrainian sovereignty, there's no way it can hold. And there'll be provocations on both sides, there'll be cyber attacks, there'll be what we call sub-threshold attacks, acts of sabotage, bombings and so forth. So it's really, really hard to see it lasting without, a really ironclad security guarantee for Kiev about where Russian-occupied territories start and stop, and how much support there is for the Ukrainian government, because the Russians will also try and remove Zelensky and install someone who's sympathetic to Russia, thus achieving by politics what they couldn't achieve by force.
Matthew Sussex is from the Centre for European Studies at the Australian National University. And just a heads up, next week we'll have something special for you. A 5-part series explaining how we're all held hostage by the cost and availability of housing. That starts on Monday, the 3rd of March. This episode was produced by Sydney Peed and Cara Jensen McKinnon. Audio production by Adair Shepherd. Our supervising producer is David Cody. I'm Sam Hawley. Thanks for listening.
ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music, and more.
An aged care worker
He was competent in his job. You've predicted the death before?
Hawley, on Gadigal land, it's been
now. So the pending work, but even more are looking, and they're looking to rejoin or go full time, especially women who are often the second income earners.
So, Nassim, there's a lot of figures there. So what does this actually mean for people who are looking for work? Is it easier or more difficult at this point?
So while the numbers are still showing 44,000 jobs were added to the economy, and so that's obviously something that Dilhara is very aware of too.
I've got friends who are directors in companies.
Oh, yeah. They couldn't create jobs around other jobs, or they couldn't create an atmosphere for the jobs, for the things, jobs to the jobs. They couldn't have any more outlet, different job line, job seekers, job internet, job this, job that, yellow pages, work, scientists, dentists, social workers, mental health, SOS or fire brigade, police, anything good like. Can't have that. I don't understand. Can't do any more now.
Companies who are now running hobby farms because they couldn't get a job for 12 months. It's crazy.
It was crazy because he couldn't get a job and he was crying in the lounge room, in the lounge room, in the house lounge room, crying his eyes out.
The disparity between knowledge, age, what's out there in the market, and there's lots of jobs, but I'm finding that they don't advertise senior roles. Leadership roles, only 30% of them, approximately 30%, I would say, get advertised. The other 70 is all about who you know, not what you know.
So, Nassim, is this just an issue for people like Dilhara, who is really highly skilled?
It can also be an issue for older workers, so people who've had a lot of experience or have been made redundant like she was, but a bit older than she is. So the Australian HR Institute carried out some research specifically looking at employing and retaining older workers. This research was done in 2023. It found that only 25% of respondents stated they were open to hiring people aged 65 and over to a large extent, and just over half, 56%, said they were open to hiring people in the next age group down, 50 to 64 years.
They should probably change those characteristic and get new ones characteristic, and the new ones will be younger or something, more efficient, more up to date. New workers can get the old ones out. Or they're not allowed.
So they'll be updating this report later this year, but there's been a range of studies showing ageism can...
Wow, I'm listening to this. I was meant to stop it, or I stop it very quickly soon.
Definitely be an issue in hiring.
Oh, all this is happening in Australia, what I'm talking about. How a lady with a prank and she might be drinking a beer, just said something strange like this, drinking a beer or something. This might be strange or something, but drinking a beer and drinking a beer. And anyway, and you could blow your mind, and the lady might say, I do just handwork or wash the dishes, clean up or do the beds or clean the windows. Can't mind control, you know what I mean? It's incredible how people live like that, and there could be prostitution or on drugs, or could be people that could be with the kids down the road, and she's got kids, or there's a lady that they need money for milk and food and all that, you know what I mean? So good. It's a lot of struggling people asking for money where I went down the road the other day. About 3 of them asking for money.
Gosh, yeah. And this is all financially, of course, really tough, Nassim, but it's also, it would really take a mental toll too.
Dilhara's story is really heartbreaking. I mean, it's been so difficult. She's had to borrow money from her family. She says she's on the brink of not being able to afford her.
Hold Oh no, my city's clean. Hector, don't lie, my city's clean. Because when I seen those three people, they're all different places down here and around the back of another building and another part of it. They were clean. They were clean. They were clean. They were clean. They were moving, shaking their money and in money, and people walking certain doors out there. That corridor was a lot of people coming in and out for the shopping mall. And another part of it was where they cut on the top, and they cut to the other shopping mall and down the bottom, and you can ask for money and all that. I don't know why I see people asking for money anyway, but it's not like polluted with or drugs or anything like that. It's clean, it's clean, it's clean. I live in Illawarra, New South Wales, Australia. It's clean, it's beautiful. And people that go to the university in Wollongong, and there's clever people, there's like upper class posh people. And they do running, and they probably laugh at me, what you idiot, whatever. They're probably laughing at you anyway. There's some really great people. I don't know their names. They're upper class people. They up themselves. And they go surfing. See how there's now a cyclone. There's a cyclone now. Oh yeah, that's what we should do, the cyclone. How about doing this? Okay. But there's a different class. People buy 4-bedroom houses, and rich upper class people. There's middle class, self-contained class, all different types in society. I love you too.
Mortgage. She breaks down crying several times during our interview, saying her mental health is suffering and she could lose.
Oh yeah, I have this one that I used to listen to. Let me go and get it for you. It's called SBS Audio. It's updating itself, hey, bro.
SBS Audio is supported by advertising. From the creator of Peaky Blinders, the critically acclaimed series based on the creation of the British
Whelan from Barclay Pearce in a few moments. But first, the new RBA Monetary Policy Board will meet for the first finance.
Its 50th year, unearth a forgotten vault of film.
25% tariffs.
And again, that says to me that the Reserve Bank isn't in a rush to cut interest rates further.
And finally, US President Donald Trump really in the headlines today, warning that those tariffs, the 25% tariffs on US imports of Mexican and Canadian goods, that second lot of 10% tariffs on Chinese imports are going to go into effect in the next day. To what extent do you think this will headlines today, warning that those tariffs, the 25% tariffs on US imports of Mexican and Canadian goods, that second lot of 10%.
Don't like cost of living pressures, and they're putting a lot of undue stress on some households. The aggregate household sector is still spending at a reasonable rate. And again, that says to me that the Reserve Bank isn't in a rush to cut interest rates further.
And finally, US President Donald Trump really in the headlines today, warning that those tariffs, the 25% tariffs on US imports of Mexican and Canadian goods, that second lot of 10% tariffs on Chinese imports are going to go into effect in the next day. To what extent do you think this will impact the Australian economy? Because what we've seen in terms of global markets overnight, they've been really hit.
Oh, rarely a day goes by these days when the US president isn't in the headlines. And tariffs are obviously, a space that economists are watching very, very closely. And, we've been inundated with announcements. It's the 25% on Canada and China, aluminium and steel, and now agricultural exports are in the focus from the administration's tariff measures. Look, at the margin, so even though people don't like cost of living pressures and they're putting a lot of undue stress on some households, the aggregate household sector is still spending at a reasonable rate. And again, that says to me that the Reserve Bank isn't in a rush to cut interest rates further.
And finally, US President Donald Trump really in the headlines today, warning that those tariffs, the 25% tariffs on US imports of Mexican and Canadian goods, that second lot of 10% tariffs on Chinese imports are going to go into effect in the next day. To what extent do you think this will impact the Australian economy? Because what we've seen in terms of global markets overnight, they've been really hit.
Oh, rarely a day goes by these days when the US president isn't in the headlines. And tariffs are obviously, a space that economists are watching very, very closely. And, we've been inundated with announcements. It's the 25% on Canada and China, aluminium and steel, and now agricultural exports are in the focus from the administration's tariff measures. Look, at the margin, that's impactful on the Australian economy. We'd like to think that because we have a free trade agreement, we'd be immune to these tariff measures, but...
Okay, oh, it went back. Oh, fucking hell. Anyway, I would like to say we have to buy more. We have to contribute or something. We have to buy more. So if it's computer games or it's technology or there are bands, we have to buy more. Because if we buy it, whoever gets first gets the first prize, brother. Like nuclear bombs or new machine gun or whatever it is. If we all buy it, we need to buy it first. So why don't they bring the Amazon or any other companies to Australia, Japan, China, America, bring it all in. We'll be signing settings, mate. YouTube. I love you. We need more. We need more and we need extras. If you know me, I'm here to protect you. I'm here to love you, smooch you, creative. Be nice to one another. I hope this was entertaining. I love you. Intermixhector YouTube channel. Please subscribe.